Hello everybody, it's the tail end of February 2025 and I'm gonna do some work on my Catalpa bignoides, which I think you'll agree is a fabulous name for a tree. It's been growing in this seed tray, this less than pretty brown, chocolate brown seed tray for a couple of years now, whilst I've been building a trunk and beginning to form a crown up top, but today it's going to go into its very first bonsai pot. I'm sure there are some as would say it's a bit too soon for a bonsai pot for this tree, but if I pull the tree out of the pot, as you can see, it needs to come out of this tray, get rid of some of this terrible weedage that's all over it, and yeah, so I want to give it some room to, what am I trying to say here, some room to produce some more roots, and so I'm going to put it in this large golden brown pot that I had for Christmas, which will give it, well, already almost an increasing root run, and by the time I've chopped the roots back it'll have a good run to regrow some roots, and I also want to do a little bit of work up top. So first of all, let's get it out of that pot and trim the roots. Okay, so in with the potting tray to contain the mess, and my most basic root pruning toolkit, my root hook, my root shears, and an old set of cutters, which are no good for working on branches and things anymore, but are actually quite good for chopping through chunkier roots that might need to come off, tap roots and the like, and a little wire brush to clean up the surface. So let's do that. I'm going to start by removing some of this surface gack and gunk and weeds. And expose a bit more of the root plate. I've actually got quite a nice spreading root base already on this tree, so I'm not going to remove all of the soil. I'm going to trim the excess and make sure that all these roundy roots are got rid of. They say I want the tree to have room to spread out in all directions. Again, this is quite a nice surface root, so I'm going to try and avoid cutting these couple of roots if I can, and leave them longer. They can then be tucked down the side of the root ball and continue to grow to develop some nice thicker surface roots. Okay, so I've taken off a fair amount of root. We'll try the pot quickly, the size. I think I'll take a little bit off this corner, but other than that I'm quite happy. We could maybe lose a little bit off the bottom perhaps. I think that will be sufficient. So let's get rid of all this mess. Make sure I rescue all my tools and get rid of the gack. Okay, yeah, so I'm pleased with that root ball. That's going to fit into that pot very nicely. Before I do any work on into the pot, I want to do a bit of work on some of these upper branches. and it's frankly going to be easier to wire them whilst the tree is out of the pot as it is freshly repotted. This is my front, and I want to do something with this piece. First of all, I'm going to shorten it back to a bud there, and I'm going to shorten this piece back to a couple of buds there. This piece back to pick off that dead stub. Shorten that. I'm going to shorten that, and then I'm going to find a piece of wire. Okay, so I've rewired these 3 branches. I'm going to leave this one as it is. Fairly happy with that. So let's get it into the pot. So much easier to put in these bends when you haven't worrying about dislodging all those nicely tucked in roots. It'd be crackers to miss out. Subscribe, like, share, comment, all those good things. Don't be crackers. Okay, so I'm using the hard pot mesh circles that I've used successfully in previous years. I prefer them to using squares of the floppy cutout stuff that I used to use and try and wire into place. These seem to stay quite happily, provided you don't dislodge them when you first put in your soil mix. They stay in put rather nicely. Speaking of soil mix, I'm using my regular mix with this tree, which is Kitty Friend cat litter, non-clumping, Kitty Friend pink, to be exact, which I had trouble getting, but I've now discovered I can have delivered to the door from Amazon, which is worth £18 for a big bag, and it lasts for quite a while. So I use 10 parts of that, 5 parts of potting grit, and 2 parts of a peat-free potting compost for an organic component, and that's it really. I just then, from that as my basic mix, I adjust it slightly, more grit for pines, etc., more organic compound for willows, trees like that, alders that are really thirsty. So a base layer like so, and then I'm going to sit the tree slightly to the left, where that first lean goes to the right. I'm quite happy with that. These roots that I left longer can now be tucked in over the side, and they will thicken up as surface roots. Hopefully, that's the plan. And then it's just a question of filling in. Because I've got a solid root ball with a flat base, I don't need to worry too much about air pockets underneath. I've already got my radial root system pretty much sorted with this tree, to the point where I'm quite happy. I don't like to completely bare root a tree if I can help it. And I'm not going to wire this tree into the pot because it's already sitting flat and stable, barring gale force winds, which this tree will be protected from for the next, well, until it's growing well and I know it's establishing its roots firmly into the pot. Yeah, it'll be mollycoddled a bit, but then it'll be out on the bench as normal. Before I add a final top layer, just to bind it all together visually, I'm going to add some slow release fertilizer Just sprinkling that loosely around in the top layer. This mix is very porous, so if you put well, this is my thinking. If I put the fertilizer in the bottom layer, it's just going to get washed out of the pot, whereas by putting it in the top layers, then as you water and the water leaches down through the pot, at least some of the fertilizer will leach down and stay in the bottom, or stay within the confines of the pot. I'm talking nonsense and waffling again, but you know what I'm trying to say, I hope. Anyway, so let's give it a sort of tie it all together layer. I'm just putting a fine covering of the fresh compost over the existing root ball, as I say, just to tie it in visually. And I think a little bit more at the back here, got a bit of a dip just there. I think that'll do nicely. We'll give it a drink. Starting to run out of the bottom now. This mix can be a little dusty, so it's always a good idea to put a good splurge of water through, just to make sure that you wash out any of the dust. There we go. It's absolutely pouring through, so that's good. Okay, so there we have it. Just give you a quick 360. This is my front, and hopefully that will give it some depth to the rear, but it can look quite nice from here as well, so this will probably end up on a bench where I can see it from both sides. That's to be the plan. Well, that's about it for this one. Just say thank you so much for watching. Do all the usual YouTube things, the liking, the subscribing, comment below, but most of all, please, 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 stay safe everybody.